I was the godfather of self-driving cars, and I was very proud of it. The US government had offered $1 million for someone who can build a self-driving car driving through the Mojave Desert. So we only had one entry, and we strangely came in first. We live in Silicon Valley at a time where we can invent great big things that really make the world different. We lose about 1.2 million people every year in traffic accidents. Waymo now has driven more than 100 million miles without ever hurting a person. There's going to be an army of people who will never find out that they're part of it, whose life is being spared because we invent self-driving cars. Udacity, my education company, we are a massive educator in the Middle East, in Egypt, in Saudi Arabia, and even Nigeria. Hundreds of thousands of people now have a different trajectory in life because we exist. That's a very meaningful thing to me. The way you look at technology is not at what it can do today. We look how much better does it get every year.
Welcome to Grit. I'm Joubin, partner at Kleiner Perkins, a show where we go beyond the highlight reel and explore the personal and professional challenges of building history-making companies. Today on the show, we have Sebastian Thrun. Sebastian invented the self-driving car at Google. He helped launch Google X, Google's innovation lab. He started Udacity. He was a professor at Stanford. He started a flying car company called Kitty Hawk with Larry Page, all at the same time. He's now building an AI company at the frontier of personal shopping. Enjoy the episode. It seems to me that in Silicon Valley right now, there's just a general buzz of busyness.
Mm-hmm.
And
everybody's a founder.
Everybody's a founder. You think that's a bad or a good thing?
It's a great thing.
It's a good thing.
People should take personal risks to make stuff happening. Yeah, absolutely.
And, I think this technology shift is the mother of all of them, maybe.
Yeah.
And people see it. And it feels like every category is going to be rewritten and up for grabs. And there's a bunch of people that are excited about going for it.
Good. Yeah, I agree.
And so I think people are busy doing that, I probably would put myself in the same category of just very busy trying to make things happen. It's fun though, isn't it?
I love it. Every age is fun. Life is amazing.
You think?
Mm-hmm.
Is there such thing as too busy?
Yeah, I think there's a state where we say like we don't see the tree for the forest, where you get so immersed in details that it's hard to keep the big picture.
Yeah. It's crazy. Like you were busy with building self-driving cars and starting the Waymo program, which by the way, we had Chris Urmson on the show before.
Nice. He's great.
He's what a gem of a human.
Yeah.
You two must have done that together?
Yes.
The Waymo program at Google.
Absolutely correct.
So you were busy with that. Then you became busy with flying cars.
Mm-hmm.
Then you got busy with democratizing online education.
Mm-hmm.
So seemingly you just like being busy with moonshot ambitious things. The type of busyness, as long as it's a moonshot thing, seems to be the thing that gets your juices flowing.
Look, I want to make the world a better place for other people, and democratizing education or changing transportation are big things. Take a lot of work. So it's super fun to do.
Are you money motivated?
No.
At all?
I need enough money to live, but I don't care about money. Money is this bizarre thing that gets your attention by other people. I'd rather get your attention without money. I'm not paying you right now to listen to me.
And do you feel like in order to be able to go for these moonshot things, you have to have a natural disposition to not be money motivated?
No, I think money is fine. Money is a good metric for success and impact. And if you impact other people's lives, you might make some money yourself. I made enough, so I don't have to worry about this anymore. And I need enough money to live, and my family to live. But beyond this, it's not that valuable. Like, if you're really, really rich, it's hard because spending money and saving money is a lot of work. If you want to make a productive person unproductive, give them lots of money. And they're going to spend all the time spending their money.
You think that's true?
Yeah. And look at the rich people that you know, like defending your money and growing it and spending it. Like, how much money it is to build a yacht? It's crazy much work.
Yeah, that's probably fair.
Or building a house. I built one house in my life. It was a lot of work.
You think it stifles ambition, or do you think it just preoccupies your time?
I don't know. I think people have the wrong metric. It's really about impact. How much do you make other people happier? I think everything given to us is given to us by other people by their choice, whether we pay money or not. And people have to choose to give something to us. Otherwise, we have nothing. So as long as you realize that everything given to you is given to you by other people, you might as well be grateful if people give something to you. Money is just one specific proxy that people are over-indexed about. I think you need enough to live. Like if you can't pay your food and so on, that's a problem. But once you have enough to live, it's not going to change your life that much.
Do you think that people that go and work for you feel that way too?
We have conversations about this. They often ask me, like, can I make more comp? And I often say, look, when you pick a place to work, don't structure your life around what happens once you reach a summit. Most mountain climbers don't spend weeks and months on top of a mountain. They enjoy the process of climbing as opposed to being up there. Secondly, pick something that you really believe in as a problem and pick a team that you believe is a winning team that's fun to work with. Because on a Monday morning, on a Tuesday morning, you're not going to spend money. You're going to spend time with your team solving important problems. And that's how you spend the only currency that really matters in people's lives, which is your time. Spend it in a meaningful way that you can look back and say, I spend my time correctly.
And so how do they receive the money conversation when you're like, don't worry about the money?
Look, if it's a negotiation about comp, that's a different thing. But if let's say a Stanford grad student comes to me and asks for life advice, that's the advice I give them. And it's genuine. I don't drive a big car. I don't own a house.
You don't own a house?
No.
You rent?
I rent.
Sorry, you said you don't own a car?
I do own a car, but not a big car.
Okay.
I used to have a Ferrari and I hated it.
Come on.
Absolutely. It's a piece of plastic. Sorry.
What year was
it's very
that?
flimsy. It was like 4 years ago or 5 years ago.
Did you not like the actual production quality of the car? Or did you not like the fact that you had a Ferrari?
Ferrari, all of the above. Ferrari has, for the high-end models, about an 80% margin. Like, as a car company if you buy a $400,000 Ferrari, you get a $60,000 car. You can read it up in their reports. That's public information.
Did you know that going into buying the Ferrari?
No, I thought I was testing and see, like, does money make me happy? So I end up to the Ferrari dealership. I talked to my friend John Alcon. He got me on top of the list and said, I need a Ferrari. And we bought one. And it was an interesting experience. And like 2 years later, I sold it and I was very happy.
How long did the feeling of happiness last when you bought that Ferrari?
0 days.
Like before
so from the
got
very
home?
beginning, I can tell you, it's a car. It's incredibly hard to even park. You want to make sure that people show you the finger when you drive by in Silicon Valley. When you park it somewhere, you don't be able to scratch it. It's not a welcome car in Silicon Valley. Maybe it's different in LA or in New York, but out here, it's just it's not the message that people send. People drive Priuses, they drive Teslas.
Yeah. Yeah, but isn't that isn't that also its own version of pretentiousness?
Whatever. I mean, look.
Like the fact that you can be a billionaire and insist on driving a Prius because it's a status symbol in and of itself that you don't need anything nice.
Here's my take. So if someone comes to me and says, look, I invented Google search and now 5 billion people use my product every day and we democratize access to information, that is really, really impressive. And that's a badge of honor. If a person comes to me and says, I have a more expensive Ferrari than you do, like, should I really care about this?
There was a line.
I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry. I don't drive a Ferrari. There was also, I'm surprised you're German. You didn't get a Porsche.
I had a Porsche before. I like the Porsche Boxster, which is like the smaller version of the Porsche.
When I'm a quarter German. My dad and his family's from Bonn.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was a kid, he was always working on old beat up Porsches.
Yeah. I mean, look.
And he couldn't stop talking about the pride that he felt in the craft of a Porsche.
Yeah. Look, I mean, if you ask about money, there's a lot of people who believe the moment they make a big paycheck, then they're super happy. And there's even more people who feel what is unfair. Someone stupid that they know got very, very rich and they didn't get rich and they regret it. And why does this idiot get rich and I don't? All that thinking is completely wrong. In Silicon Valley, everybody I know has plenty money. Every engineer that works with me has enough money to live a great life. We live in a phase of abundance where we all have enough to eat. We all have enough education. We have a place to stay. We have everything we want taken care of. So this over-indexing of money is a big mistake. What you really should over-index on is impact. Like, can you change other people's lives? Like, can you democratize something that's really essential for the world? Mm. And then if you do this, I respect you deeply. And that's the respect I seek in myself. Can I make other people's life materially better?
Did you also try buying a house to see what the limits of spending money could do for your happiness?
I built a house once in Los Altos Hills. It was an interesting experience. It was a complete time sink. I'm never going to do it again.
And that's why you rent?
Yeah. It's so much easier. I could buy a house if I wanted to. That's not the issue.
What about money for time? Will you trade money for time?
In a very limited way, possibly. But generally speaking, look, the currency that all of us have, and given by nature or by God, whatever your religion is time. And that's something that's important to me. That's something that I trade. If someone comes to me and works for me or with me and I pay the money, I get their time. And it's my royal duty to make sure that they spend their time really well. I really deeply believe this. Same is true when I was at Stanford as a professor and students come to me, want to be advised by me. They give me their time. And my job is to make sure that time is spent in a meaningful way. The most meaningful way to spend your time in my books is to help other people, make other people great. Because that's the most gratifying way we can spend our time, at least in my books. So if you do something that really helps the world move forward, and I'm very lucky, I live in Silicon Valley at a time where we can invent great big things that really make the world different. Like, for example, you mentioned Udacity, my education company. We are a massive educator in the Middle East, in Egypt, in Jordan, and in Saudi Arabia, and even Nigeria. And we're now tens or if not hundreds of thousands of people now have a different trajectory in life because we exist. In self-driving cars, we lose about 1.2 million people every year in traffic accidents. Waymo now has driven more than 100 million miles without ever hurting a person. We're now materially safer than human drivers. There's going to be an army of people who will never find out that they're part of it, whose life is being spared because we invent self-driving cars. They will not thank us. They will not give us any money. I don't care. But they will live. That's a very meaningful thing to me.
Does that satisfaction, do you feel that satisfaction on a day-to-day?
Very much so.
Like you're able to actually enjoy that feeling?
Yes, I am.
Rather than chase the next wave of people to go help?
I'm generally a very happy human being.
Really?
Yes. I wake up in the morning, look at the sky and say I'm happy. Because I'm so grateful. We live in such amazing times. Like, go back history wheel, okay? Humanity, people are 300,000 years old, okay? And about 300 years ago, where I'm from in Europe, we basically lived in slavery. Our life expectancy was 35 years. By that time, I'll be dead for about 20 years now. We would never have enough food. We would never have new clothing in our life. We would not be able to read or write. We work in the farms, and if we get sick, we might die. Women would die in childbirth. They would have many children, often 10, 15. At some point, they just die. That was the truth, and it's still the truth today in places like Somalia and certain places in Asia, certainly in Palestine today, and so on. We live in a world where this is all completely changed. We have so much free time, so much ability to do whatever we want. We have an abundance of food. We have more problems with obesity today than with malnutrition. For the first time in human history. Why is it not lucky?
When you're going through hard things, do you still feel lucky? Do you still feel grateful?
Well, it's not a binary thing. Obviously, I can be really in pain about certain things and still be lucky to be alive. But I'm always grateful, yeah. I'm very grateful.
Have you always had this gratitude? Or has that developed over time?
That's a good question. I think since I was like 16, I had at least a very strong introspective element in my life where I started thinking about things more deeply than a superficial, oh my God, I'm a good looking, cool guy, which was my attitude before I was 16. Been I always happy? No, I have unhappy days. There's no question. But overall, the older I get, the more grateful I am for the small things in life.
Did something happen at 16?
At 16, I went to a camp in England where I was at a visiting family, guest family, and the son of the guest family, a bit older than me, within like a day or two said, "Boy, you're really arrogant." And up to this point, I was under the firm belief I was just a really cool, great guy, and everybody was just jealous of me. But having a foreigner label me arrogant kind of woke me up and said, look, there got to be something in life that's deeper than what you think about yourself. And then I started realizing that we're full of these beliefs of ourselves that are often not correct. When you dig deeper, a lot of our emotions trace back to some very basic feelings like fear. Insecurity is a big one. I've got to learn when I'm angry that I'm angry with myself as opposed to other people. I really believe this. Whenever I find to be angry about something, and I really reflect on what's really happening, is I'm really angry at myself. It's very hard to make me angry as a third person party. And then also at some point started realizing that everybody asks about their intentions has good intentions. And yet most of us would label 10% of our coworkers as people with bad intentions or idiots. But we never label ourselves. There's an asymmetry. We believe we have great intentions and other people don't. So I started living my life thinking maybe every human being has great intentions. So why don't I, if there's a problem, why don't I start at the point that the person has good intentions, okay? And let's figure out what the problem is. And that has so amazingly changed my life because now I can go to anybody I have a conflict with and sit with them and listen to them, understand what their perspective is, and react to it. And what I often find is it's usually half the other person's fault and half my fault. And there's nothing bad about this because then we can resolve it. Whereas most people are somewhat insecure and immediately attribute bad intentions to other people. And once you do this, you're stuck because you can't even communicate anymore.
Yeah, it seems like we probably are just a little more self-centered than we'd like to believe. Like going to your Ferrari example, like when you're driving a Ferrari, generally the people driving the Ferraris think that everyone cares and pays attention to them and thinks they're really cool. But on the outside, if you're on the sidewalk and you see the guy driving the Ferrari, you usually either A, don't pay attention, or B, don't actually have a positive emotion around it.
Wasn't the right thing for me, to be honest. Like, this is such a signifier. Look, I have a Ferrari. It's not a private thing you do in your home where you're quietly in the corner have a Ferrari. It's something that this just wasn't for me.
When you said you were teaching as a professor at Stanford, how old were you when that started?
I started about, good question, 33.
Okay.
I was tenured at the time, yeah.
Had Larry and Sergey already, had they left?
Yes, they had left.
And did you know them when you were there?
I got to know them very quickly, especially Larry, because Larry had a very strong relationship to Stanford and would stop by regularly and poke his nose into random university professors' offices.
And you got to know him then?
Yeah.
And at that point, you'd only done academia. You hadn't actually...
Right. I was a diehard academic. Oh my God, I knew everything.
Yeah. And then what?
Then the big thing in my life that came along was this thing called Grand Challenge, which was a robot race. But the US government had offered $1 million for someone who can build a self-driving car, driving through the Mojave Desert. This environment was motivated by lives lost in Afghanistan and Iraq, where improvised explosive devices, which cost soldiers' life at the time, big problem at the time. And the US government wanted to have a self-driving car that could navigate Iraq. So I got sucked in and I decided to put an entry into this competition, see if I can make a car that could drive 140 miles on its own through a desert.
And was Chris Urmson in that same competition?
He was my competitor, my fiercest competitor.
He was, and I can't remember, did he win or get second?
So the big one, the DARPA Grand Challenge, he came in second and third. And the subsequent Urban Challenge, he came in first.
And you were second and first, respectively?
No, so we only had one entry. Carnegie Mellon smartly had put in 2 cars to double their chances. And we strangely came in first. Very lucky.
And who was it students that were on your team?
Yes, I had a team primarily of 4 people, myself included, that would spend every waking moment on it and write all the software. I was the dumbest of the 4, so I would get people the lunch and pizza. And then we had a support team of mechanics and so on.
And then why did that change the trajectory of things for you once you won?
Well, the moment you win a DARPA Grand Challenge, you are in the news every day. I was immediately connected to Silicon Valley, which is not entirely academic. It's a lot of venture capital and so on. Larry loved it. Sergey loved it. They wanted to bring self-driving cars into Google, which they later did. And I used it as a platform to really think about how can I connect to people outside academia.
What do you mean Larry and Sergey loved it?
Well, Larry's always been a robotics fan. And he told me at some point, had he not studied information retrieval and databases at Stanford, he would have studied robotics. I'm so glad he didn't, because he built something completely amazing. They're both off the charts smart. And they have a knack for seeing the future in a way that's what I call nonlinear, which is not obvious at the time to other people. Like, for example, when they decided, look, Google got to get into the self-driving car business, it was not obvious to people. It wasn't that the shareholders were sitting there saying, yes, Google, you're amazing. You solved search and Gmail and Maps and all that stuff. And Android now become a self-driving car company. It was their perspective.
And did they call you to start the self-driving car project at Google?
There's a very funny story. So I sold a company to them in 2007 that became Street View. And after that, Larry would literally show up at my cubicle in 2009 and say, look, Sebastian, I thought long and hard. We got to build self-driving cars. And I was literally the world expert on the topic. I've won the DARPA Grand Challenge. I gave all the speeches and wrote all the papers. I was the godfather of self-driving cars. And I was very proud of it. So I looked at it and said, look, we're able to drive in the desert when there's no people, but to drive a self-driving car in the middle of San Francisco with all the children running around, that is murder. This is like crime. We can't do it. And then Larry looked at me and said, hey, Sebastian, we should try it. I said, this can't be done, right? And we had this sequence of conversations where he come by every day and asked Sebastian, have you changed your mind? Can we do it? And he said, no, it can't be done. Eventually he came to me and said, look, Sebastian, so that I can tell Eric Schmidt, the CEO, and my friend Sergey Brin, why it can't be done, just give me the technical reason. Explain to me technically why it can't be done. And then in that moment, I realized what a fool I was. I went home in agony and realized, oh my God, I'm so convinced it can't be done, but there's no technical reason. I can't explain why. And that was for me a pivotal moment in my life where I realized, wow, I'm the expert and I'm giving the worst possible opinion. Like people who built search engines before are better informed about what my expertise is than I am. And I started realizing that experts are typically experts of the past. They're really good in helping you to build the same thing over again, but then often not equipped to even understand the change that's coming. That's why many industries are so stagnant, because their so-called experts have a really hard time seeing the change. And now I was in a situation as a professor at Stanford and a famous guy in self-driving cars that I got it completely wrong. So I came home the next day and Larry stopped by again and said, what do you think, Sebastian? I said, well, Sebastian, Larry, I'm sorry, I have no technical reason. And Larry said, why don't we start it? And then we hired Chris Urmson and we hired a whole bunch of great people. And the rest is history.
What year was that?
2009.
And how long were you working on that project?
Well, so I was there until 2014. In that time, we got the car to the point where it could drive roughly 300,000 miles without human takeovers, which is one lifetime of human driving. So it was pretty good, but not good enough.
Not good enough because it still took, at that point, 10 years to get it out.
Correct. So if you look at the data, the Waymo car, which I'm not part of these days, has just driven 100 million miles. Okay, 100 million miles without ever hurting a person. That is incredibly impressive. That's much, much, much safer than human driving. So today we live in a world where the Waymo car is noticeably and provably safer than the best human drivers. Okay, that's a fact now. That's new. But 100 million miles, back when I left, we were at 300,000 miles. So it's like basically 3 orders of magnitude difference. So there was still work to be done on these incredibly rare cases that we hadn't covered yet, where the car had to be safe. That hadn't been done yet.
Did you know in 2012, 13, 14 that you're still that far away?
We kind of do. And we kind of saw how fast the car evolved. Like we had this metric of critical takeovers. Like how often does a human safety driver have to intervene for the safety of the vehicle? And they said it was 1 in 300,000 miles. That roughly every year got roughly a factor of 5 to 10 larger. But that metric, they could have been done maybe a little bit earlier. But we all knew that as we drove more and more streets, there were these incredibly rare situations that we just hadn't thought about. Like I remember just before I left, we had on a highway, a plastic bag that flew across the highway and went, and the car thought it was a rock in the sky. And we'd never trained it that there could be a plastic bag flying in the sky. And its lidars see this big, massive object that looks literally like a rock. So we had to kind of get on top of these incredibly rare cases. Lucky to us, that specific one didn't cause any problems, but the car went into braking mode, right? Because it braked for a plastic bag.
When you were in 2014 and you could still see that we were a long ways away, you left?
I left because Udacity came along and I wanted to get involved in education. And look, Chris is a world rock star, entrepreneur and tech leader. So I felt it was in good hands, which it was. It was time to become my own startup captain.
You didn't think you were there?
Not at Google X.
Why not?
My company. But more importantly, I had just offered a class on Stanford's campus online that had become the world's first MOOC, massive open online course. It was a class on AI that collected 160,000 online students. And it was a wake-up moment for me to realize among the things that are done, education was really important because it empowered people to shape their own lives. And I felt no one was doing it. So I felt it was important for me to step in and start a team called Udacity that would then offer online education to really truly democratize higher education.
How surreal is it right now seeing these Waymos drive around San Francisco?
Oh, it's amazing. It makes me incredibly proud.
Like, how insane is that feeling?
It's insane. I can't cross the street without seeing a Waymo. And I'm so happy and so incredibly in awe of the team that has been built and just been doing this.
Did you think it was going to happen still?
Yes, 100%.
Like you always knew it was going to happen. It was just a matter of if, not when.
If you look at the way you look at technology is not at what it can do today. We look at technology at the rate of change, right? So how much better does it get every year? And when I left, it was clearly not as good as human drivers, with the exception maybe of drunk drivers or distracted drivers, texting drivers. But we could see that every year it got better and better. And the nice thing about this in self-driving cars is it's like the digital brain. Like if one self-driving car has an insight and learns, like if one human driver makes a mistake, you and I, and we learn from it, by and large, no other human driver is going to learn from it. They're going to make the same mistakes. But if a self-driving car makes a mistake, it corrects the mistake, and all other cars will never make the same mistake again, ever, including all the unborn cars. So you have this incredible multiplier in the digital world that humans don't have, which is we can build on knowledge so much faster. So it's just a question of time when these curves intersect. And I always believed in the early 2020s would be the time when the car would be safer than humans. And now we'll see it. We have cars on the streets that are safer than human drivers.
Do you think Waymo is going to be the only player?
No.
You think Tesla will come soon?
There's a lot of activity in China that we mostly overlook here between Baidu and Pony and Didi and others. That is very, very impressive right now, where there's Waymo equivalents driving across certain places in China. And yes, eventually, I think even in the United States, there's competition now. Tesla has made the choice to really focus on cameras only.
As opposed to?
Cameras plus LiDAR plus radar.
Yeah.
And that's the choice they've made. As a result, I think they're having a slightly harder time getting the same reliability levels, but they're going to get there.
Elon's very outspoken about that.
That's good for him.
He's very outspoken about the idea that Waymo's wrong and he is right about choosing just cameras, because that's how humans drive. And why can't cars drive that way if humans drive that way?
Look, I mean, I was taking the position that we should build technology that works. There were people at DARPA at some point that put a humanoid robot into a car that physically moved its artificial legs to push the gas pedal and the brake pedal. To me, that's not the correct solution. I think we should just interface with the car. In terms of sensors, the nice thing about LiDARs and radars is they give you direct range. So if something comes across you've never seen before, like this famed plastic bag, you can tell how far away it is, irrespective of what it is. And that gives you an extra layer of curtain of safety that I think is important today. So far, it looks like the only car that's truly driven 100 million miles without a driver inside has been Waymo.
Yeah. And so do you think he'll eventually add LiDAR?
I think eventually the thesis is correct. People can drive with eyes only. So at some point, machines will drive with eyes only. It's just going to take a little longer. That's fine.
And his point is, once we get to that point, it's going to be cheaper for us to do this than Waymo.
Look, if you look at the cost of LiDAR, it's come down tremendously. You find world-class automotive LiDARs long range for roughly $200 in China. So if you argue about $200, yeah, it's real money. If you build cars, $200 is real money. And Elon told me this, like a car, he told me at some point, is a box of stuff where no component costs more than $3. And to make a car cheaper is really, really hard. And I believe that's true. So adding $200 or maybe $40 for a radar is real money. But if I can add it today and have a service today and drive safely, would I do it? Probably yes. Especially if I can build a ride-sharing company like Waymo, where the car is being utilized by many, many people. I think if you look at the balance sheet of a Waymo, the LiDAR cost will be relatively small when amortized over many miles.
So you think it's just a relatively moot point over the coming 5 years or so? It won't matter.
Look, my personal belief is at this point, you want to make the car as safe as humanly possible. And you really can't risk running over a person. So as a result, you do whatever it takes to make this thing safe. And our attitude at Waymo, when I ran it back as a third project, was really to say, look, let's double down on safety over cost. And that's not entirely correct. In the end, it's going to be a cost game. There's no question. But safety was more important than cost. Mm-hmm. So we were happy to use, back in the day, LiDARs that cost multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Are there Waymos in New York City now?
I think they're trying to get there, from what I understand.
That seems insane.
Why?
I mean, like, when was the last time you were in New York?
Look, here's the thing about New York.
The cars drive. If you're in a taxi in New York, you're like inches from the car next to you.
But it turns out a self-driving car can calculate the distance much, much, much better than people, because it has these amazing LiDARs that just sit there and tell you up in millimeter accuracy how far this other thing is away. When it comes to precision, robots win.
Okay, but part of the driving demeanor of New York City is an aggressiveness.
Correct.
That defines how you move around in New York.
Same in San Francisco. Maybe not quite as
maybe not as extreme, but that might be true. But it's not as extreme. Like in New York, you kind of got to run some red lights to get anywhere. Even if you're like turning left or whatever, it just kind of how it is. People are walking around everywhere in a way that it's not the same in San Francisco.
So we learned this the hard way early on in Google Chauffeur, which is on highways. If you stick in San Francisco to the posted highway speed, you become an obstacle. In many, many cases, people exceed the speed by 10 to 15 miles per hour. If you roll with the traffic, you're generally safer than if you slow everybody else down and force them to drive around you. Okay. We also learned at four-way intersections early on, if you want to be polite and wait until it's your turn, you're never going to go. You have to, when it's your turn, you have to inch forward aggressively into the intersection to signal to other drivers, now it's my turn. I'm going to take it. Stay away. That's what's happening. You're constantly communicating with other traffic. Same is true for lane changes and so on. When you look at Waymo, over the years, it has become much more quote unquote aggressive to make it safer, right? So if you're overly careful, if you drive overly carefully, you don't add to public safety. Just slow everything down. So if you look at self-driving cars today, and many people remark this to me, I'm obviously not on the team anymore, but I believe that the Waymo car has become significantly more assertive.
For sure.
In its
probably got sick of getting cut off.
Yeah. No, that's a good thing. I think traffic works in a certain way, and you have to adjust to the way traffic works. When you go to Manhattan, you have to adjust even more, obviously. If you go to Bangalore, you have to adjust because of different traffic rules. You go to Boston.
So you don't think it doesn't matter the city, is your point?
I think you can adjust to any kind of traffic rules. Yeah.
You've come full circle from there's no way this thing's going to work.
Most extreme is go to India, where the size of the vehicle determines the right of way. If you're the big bus, you go first. If you're the small rich car, you go last. Yes, all that can be learned.
Fascinating. Do you think how old are your kids?
17, 4, and 2.
17, 4, and 2. Will your 4-year-old own a car?
My 17-year-old hasn't learned it yet. I don't
He
know.
or she takes...
He takes Uber, Waymo. Like, there's no interest in driving a car.
And if your 17-year-old is taking Uber versus Waymo, as a parent, do you get more nervous because it's a human driving?
No. I think Uber and Lyft are very, very safe. Professional drivers are much safer than casual drivers. I got more nervous when he goes with his drunk friends after a party.
Do you feel like these advances in these language models is going to meaningfully progress any of the behavior of these self-driving cars?
Oh, it's already happening. If you look at the way data is being interpreted, machine learning has played a massive role for the last decade already, very, very deeply. Really understanding what's inside a camera image, what is the object. If you want to predict something, looking at the 3D point cloud is one thing, but if you understand this is a dog, this is a human, this is a child, and maybe you understand even more, like these are two people who look at each other, then you're much better able to predict what's going to happen next.
And so how do you think, from assuming the rate of progress maintains relatively the same, how do you think the behavior of these cars is going to improve, practically speaking, call it in the next 5 years?
Well, I'm looking forward to the time when most cars are self-driving, because then we can massively change everything. For example, highway lanes are 6 feet wide and cars are by and large roughly 3 to 4 feet wide. And the space between cars is gargantuous because human drivers are not good in reacting. If you had a precision driver on a highway, you can make the lanes much smaller and increase the capacity.
Add an extra lane.
Yeah. A full highway is 92% empty. If you take a full highway and look at a picture from the air from a helicopter and count the number of pixels.
Is that true?
Yes.
A
full highway that is like slow down because it's so congested is 92% empty. And you can do the test. Just go to Google Maps, find a congested highway and count the number of pixels that have no car from above. It's roughly 90% give and take.
And so when Larry came to you and was like, let's do flying cars, is that how it happened? He came to you and said, let's do flying cars?
That was another funny story.
Go ahead.
Larry, I just admire Larry. He's so out of the box creative about things. So it's
talk about someone who got rich and didn't take their foot off the gas pedal.
That's true. And knowing Larry really well, he doesn't concern himself with how to spend his money in any meaningful way, to be honest. He really concerns himself how to make the world a better place to the present day. But back then, 2010-ish, he invited me for dinner and we had dinner together. We geeked out together. We love geeking out together. He's obviously much smarter than me, so I learned from him. He had a spreadsheet and said, look, Sebastian, I talked to Elon, I worked it out. I think batteries are good enough for us to just fly. And he had put together the very basics, like lift over drag, like the basic mechanics that govern energy and power consumption in flight, both for the vertical takeoff phase and the horizontal flight phase. And he also said, look, Sebastian, if you use batteries, you can use electric motors. Electric motors are quiet, whereas gas motors are noisy. And one of the reasons why I don't like helicopters is because they're so incredibly noisy. They're illegal for most part in like Napa and in San Francisco for private flight because they're noisy. And they also have a single point of failure. There's a bolt in the helicopter that keeps the blades together called the Jesus bolt, because if it breaks, you'll die. Whereas if you build an electric vehicle, you could have like 10 motors, 20 motors. Who cares? Massive redundancy. And I was sitting there thinking, okay, I learned my lesson. I'm not going to go to Larry and say it can't be done. I'm not that stupid. Let's make the same mistake twice again. So I said, okay, that's interesting. So I helped him start what ended up to become Kitty Hawk and find the right initial CEO, a wonderful professor from Stanford, and build the very first prototypes.
And going back to your 92% vacancy on the freeway.
It's in my mind now. You're thinking about it.
Well, I guess, were you solving the wrong problem by going to the air?
No.
If the ground was so inefficient, or that could become so much more efficient?
Look, I'll give you any kind of speed where the air is the right solution for everything in transportation. 60% of the land mass in Los Angeles is dedicated to cars, more than half. It's the driveways, garages, freeways, all this stuff together. If you could invent a flying car that could take off on your rooftop, you have twice the real estate in Los Angeles. Okay. Bit different from San Francisco, but the density in Los Angeles is particularly bad for cars. We have built vehicles that can fly roughly at a third of the energy of a Tesla per mile, per passenger mile, and twice the speed. And because they're going to go straight line as opposed to have to stop at intersections, they go roughly 10 times as fast. So imagine you come from San Francisco to the airport in like 4 minutes, reliably. Now, people always say, how about a congestion on the ground? Isn't there congestion in the air? But the highway on the ground is basically one-dimensional, whereas the space in the air is three-dimensional. It's much, 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 much bigger. Like if you don't like the traffic coming at you, you go 20, 30 feet higher and go into the traffic. You can't do this on the ground. So you can deconflict by going higher and lower.
Sure.
And the sky is effectively empty. So if you took all the traffic in the Bay Area that's on the ground right now into the air, you'd still be hundreds of yards away from the next traffic because the air is so much bigger.
That makes sense.
Good.
But
You're giving me this look.
did it work?
So we got it to the prototype stage, and we eventually sold the biggest part off to Boeing, where we were able to document, we had like 27,000 test flights, able to truly document safety. The stuff was really safe. We never had an incident. We were able to document energy efficiency, quietness. We knew that if we flew 1,000 feet above you, our noise level would be the same as in a library, like 38 decibels, which is like nothing. We were able to show the end-to-end thing that it really worked in theory, but we weren't able to build a business.
Did you get in any of the flying cars?
Yes, I did. It was super fun.
Where'd you fly from?
We flew over Lake Las Vegas. We had a phase where we tested it over water in case something goes wrong. You wouldn't immediately die. You just take a bath. But that was, it was a few years ago. It was super fun. The other thing was really cool is, one version of it is autonomous, like you just fly this thing, flies itself, which I think is a correct solution. But we also had a version that you can fly yourself. And it turns out flight today for a regular pilot is very complicated to fly an aircraft. But to fly like a drone is super easy. It takes you 10 minutes to learn how to fly a drone. So we built a plane where we trained 50 pilots on a single day to fly it and flew them all these 50 people, random people. It took about 1 hour of training. And after 1 hour, you were a proficient pilot.
How much money did Kitty Hawk raise?
I can't talk about that.
Maybe the question behind the question is, should it have just been done the same way that Waymo was off of the Google balance sheet so that you'd have more time to figure out the commercial model?
Well, so Larry and I talked about it, and at the time it felt like self-driving car was a stretch for Google. Flying cars felt like too much of a stretch.
What year was that?
2010, about the same time.
About the same time as
Chauffeur.
When Waymo was getting Waymo, when
Correct.
self-driving was getting off the ground at Google.
Yeah.
No pun intended. But you were still building the self-driving at that point?
Correct. Yeah. I, at the time, had many jobs. I was a professor at Stanford. I was head of Google X. I was running Chauffeur with Chris Urmson. I was running an education company.
And then you were finding the CEO?
Yeah, so I often love to start things. If you want to criticize Sebastian, I'm probably better a 0 to 1 person than a 1 to 100 person. So for me, the moment when you invent something completely novel that's never been there before, it's when you have the most fun.
And do you think that what enabled Waymo to ultimately go from interesting tech to what it is today was the longevity that it had within Google, basically?
I'm sure they could have found outside funding. I mean, they're worth a lot.
Now.
Yeah. I think the moment when it really flipped over to something that people took seriously was 2017 when Uber got to the race. You might remember Uber hired a good chunk of the Carnegie Mellon faculty and with a big fanfare built his own team. And that's when people started realizing this stuff was real.
They recruited a bunch of people from your team too, right?
Only one person, Anthony.
Okay. I won't go there because that's a touchy subject, I imagine.
I was his mentor.
No.
Yeah, let's not go there.
Sad.
Look, I mean, overall, I'm actually quite happy. I think the technology is really having an impact right now. It's becoming real and it's unstoppable. And there'll be a time when we will find irresponsible in cities that humans drive. There'll be a time in New York, Manhattan will decide it's a city for self-driving cars because it's so much safer.
So you're saying, hey, maybe with long enough that the wound is healed.
I generally believe that Silicon Valley is amazing because information does fairly freely flow from company to company. It's pretty common you work at Apple and then work at Google and work at Facebook.
Right.
And in doing so, you might not take exact trade secrets, but you can take all your knowledge with you. And if we didn't have this incredible permeability in Silicon Valley, people would stay in their jobs. Like, you go to the finance industry in Manhattan, it's different. If you work for a big hedge fund, you will not work for another hedge fund the next year, or they'll sue you. Whereas in California, that's not possible. In California, we can actually change these jobs very frequently. And it's a big part of why Silicon Valley is so great.
Yeah,
because
the fact
there's a
that
common knowledge.
that's right. Non-competes are not that enforceable in California. And therefore, you allow great talent to cross-pollinate into other areas.
Yeah. I mean, you look at...
And that's a good thing.
Photographic suite on Android and iOS. The Android version came of Google X, so I know it really well. Mark Levoy built it. Like low-light photography and all that stuff. Today, iOS and Android are about the same, right? And it's great because all the smartphone users get to enjoy the best technology.
When you were doing the professorship, the find a CEO for Kitty Hawk, the building self-driving, what am I missing? Udacity.
And lots of other stuff.
How did you...
Google Brain.
How did you manage the day?
Look, I always believed that a way to organize an entity like Google X is to set very clear goals, what you want to accomplish, find the best people in the world, and get out of the way. I never believed that we should micromanage. I never believed that we should be fuzzy about stuff. So let's take the self-driving car project. We decided that we want to build a self-driving car that could drive every street in California. That sounded crazy at the time, but Larry persuaded and convinced me it's the right objective. And credit to Larry and Sergey for doing this. And then we hired people like Chris Urmson and Dmitry Dolgov and other great people to build this with us. And in that process, I more and more got out of the way because they did a phenomenally great job. And they had clarity where they're going and ownership. That's the beauty of our Silicon Valley. When you have clarity where you're going, what mountain you're climbing, and you have ownership, people are unbelievably amazing. And they build amazing stuff. So they built a car that could, within a year and a half, drive 1,000 reference miles that Larry and Sergey had handpicked in California as the hardest streets to drive, including Tiburon and downstream Market Street and Lombard Street and Highway 1 to Los Angeles and around Lake Tahoe. And the car was just flawless at doing it, a year in, or a year and a half in. My life has always been to find and build amazing teams. And then when the teams work really well, which is a lot of hard work, basically get out of their way and be there when they need you, but don't micromanage. And in that way, you can multiply yourself. You can build multiple things. So at Google X, we had a computational photography team. We had a blimp team that would put balloons into the stratosphere. We had a team building drones. We had a team, Google Brain, maybe the most impactful, that really invented how to do indexing in YouTube and later became Gemini. We had a self-driving car team. We had teams that failed. We had a Google Glass team, which I loved, but Google Glass ended up being a failure. Maybe too early, I don't know. We had an architecture team that didn't work out. And all these things, what I really enjoyed and really learned from Larry and Sergey and from Eric Schmidt is it's really important to have an objective that is meaningful, that is far out there. Larry had long taught me that building something incremental is much harder than something radically new. He would say, look, building a pizza restaurant is harder than building a self-driving car. And it's true. Making a pizza restaurant, no one's going to give you credit. It's super hard. You have to put your retirement savings on the line and probably fail. Whereas building a self-driving car, you get all the money in the world. It's easy in comparison. And if you build something radically different, it's often much easier than something incremental because you free your brain. You build something entirely new. So as long as we pick the right objectives, and Larry and Sergey really taught me greatly how to do this, we could build teams that could move the world and change the world.
Were you managing all those projects at Google X?
Me and I had Astro Teller at some point to help me, and he was amazing.
What about your family?
Look, I have my second family now. I'm very happy. I spent a lot of time with them. I think my first wife was incredibly great in supporting me. I really, to the present day, I'm full of appreciation. There were many, many moments where all of a sudden had to fly somewhere and all the plans changed and she would carry the burden. Absolutely, yes.
Meaning expects you for dinner. Sorry, I gotta go to Carnegie Mellon.
But look, I mean, like when
Do you
you
feel
ask,
guilty about that?
no guilt, never ever. Guilt and fear are just the wrong emotions in life, period. It's like one lesson to take away from this. Try a day without guilt and without fear, and just try it out for one day and see how you feel. And then take it for the rest of your life. No guilt, no fear. You can absolutely make mistakes. And you can look back and say, I made a mistake. I would say about 80% of my work is either mistakes or cleaning up past mistakes. And the way I come to this 80% number is, if you ask any CEO, now give them, like, say, go to Brian Chesky, someone really amazing, or Larry Page, and say, give them what you know today. How much faster could you rebuild your company? Give them what you know today. Universally, they give you an estimate that's 5 times as fast. So if it took them 5 years, it's going to be 1 year. If it took them 25 years, it's going to be 5 years. And it's true. If they could rebuild the same thing in a fifth of the time, which means 4/5, like 4 out of 5 days from Monday to Thursday, are wasted time, at least at the surface, where you did the wrong thing. Now, they're not wasted because you learned something interesting, and you have to do experimentation to find the right answer. But my most recent company, we just now have an app we just launched, which is phenomenally successful so far. It's the 5th app we tried on the same topic, and 4 of them we had to throw away. So in terms of efficiency, it's actually more important to think about how to be efficient with time than to work like crazy. If you can crank up your productivity from 20% to 40% in Silicon Valley, you're still 60% incorrect as opposed to 80% incorrect, which is about the same number. You doubled your productivity. So for me, it's more about, can you be super wicked smart about what to do and what not to do? And that's hard. I'm not good at this, but I feel this is more important than the workaholic side.
No guilt.
No. That's like, guilt is what your grandmother, your Jewish or Catholic grandmother invents to make you accountable and do what they want you to do.
So let me give you the counterpoint and just respond to it.
Sure.
A lot of people would say, well, my kids are growing up. I missed their first steps. I didn't hear their first words. I didn't get to see a lot of their youth. By the time they're 18 years old, they've already spent 98% of the time that they'll ever spend with you or something. You're probably gone for a lot of those times.
Good. Here's what you should do. You made a mistake. You're looking back and said, if I could turn back the time, I would do it differently. If you have more children, don't make that mistake again. Learn from it. You're allowed to make a mistake, but only once. If you make it twice, you don't learn. But why guilt? Why does guilt help in that situation? Why does guilt feel better? Like, my God, why should you punish yourself and pound yourself with guilt?
But do you think you can choose to experience the emotion of guilt? Do you think that's a deliberate choice that people make when they decide? You think they decide, I want to feel bad about this?
I think you can change your life to feel less guilty. Absolutely, yes. Maybe not overnight, but once you realize it's just fundamentally a miserable force in life. Like, I have to find people say, I'm so happy to feel guilty. And it doesn't really change anything to the better. Like, why don't you, like, if we all make mistakes every day. I just told you 80% of my work is mistakes. Like, I make mistakes all the time. If I felt guilty about it and fearful, I would stop sticking out my neck. I would stop being innovative, stop trying something new. I would become a creature of habit like most people and just do the same stuff over again because it feels safe. So that kind of feeling to me takes away from the beauty of human nature and what we can accomplish.
Super interesting. This app that you built, when I go on the website to see what you're working on, it's
we launched it this week. The website is shopongold.com. I'll tell you what the ambition
mysterious.
Yeah, so we have the nice thing, we had it on the marketplace roughly for a month and a half with people that just came and didn't pay, like random testers. And our 7-day retention is now 95%. Our 1-day retention is roughly 60%. The insight is the following. When you go to your phone right now, I have about 15 different apps that relate to financial services. I have about 8 to 10 different apps that relate to communications, like messaging apps, my various medical apps and so on, emails, SMS. I have about 25 travel apps. And when I navigate my phone, I find myself navigating the world's org chart. But I'm just one person. I don't need like 15 different messaging apps, Signal and WhatsApp and all that stuff, if I want to talk to the same people. Why isn't it just one messaging app? So for me, what agentic AI will do is it'll unify the world to give you one access point, irrespective of the world's org chart. And we're testing this in retail, in online purchase, in shopping, specifically fashion shopping. So in fashion shopping, we have now under contract roughly 300 different vendors that provide things to buy, like skirts and dresses and all that kind of stuff. And we go out with an agentic AI every night and find the perfect things for you. And we give you an hour every day called the golden hour where you can look at this stuff and buy it. Typically 70, 80% off, 90% off, chosen just for you. And when you like something, you can click it with a single button. And we do all the work for you. We go to this website, we register you, whatever, and put in your address and your credit card number and all that stuff. And the stuff comes to your house. You have no clue where it's coming from, which means you can now command 200 stores, 300 stores with a single app, as opposed to having 200 apps on your phone or whatever, 200 websites, a single app. And then by us having the agentic AI finding the perfect thing for you, we get roughly 86,000 new deals every night, which is a price drop or a sale, which happens to be exactly 1 per second. You as a human being won't even be able to monitor all this. Like you won't even find it. We find this stuff for you and we serve it to you every single day fresh.
Was this the original idea?
No, the original idea was much more abstract. And my God, we made every mistake on the planet. It was so bad that my entire founding team has left by now.
Come on.
Yes.
Even
I'm the
they
last
left
one
you?
standing. Yes, I'm the last one standing. Yes, I hired a whole bunch of people straight out of college. And after roughly a year, they were so, oh my God, it's not working. So we tried, in the beginning, we tried a large language model. We felt like GTP is so amazing. We're going to build a chat GPT for shopping. And you could talk to it and say, look, I'm going to go to Hawaii and I want to have a dress for this kind of weather. And it would come something with you. And it turns out that's blah. People don't want to talk about stuff. They want to see stuff. So we built a site where you can see lots of stuff. And that ended up to be just about a clone of Google Shopping. So when we were done with it, it was really, really good. People said, meh, feels like Google Shopping. So it took many iterations. But what we always believed is that agentic AI is amazing. We should really be able to do all the hard work for you don't want to do. So search the stuff, buy the stuff for you. We believe the world is dynamic. And we now know, with the many, many sites we scrape every night, that there's roughly 1 million new things every night popping up on the internet for shopping. That was great. We also believe that the industry itself is inefficient. If you're in the retail industry, you might have large margins. If you buy something, say at H&M for $100, it might only be $10 to make it. But one of the three things is never sold. So one of the three things either is being destroyed or being shipped to Africa, what have you. So the industry also has a problem, which is it wants to match its stuff to its customers. We figured if you build a really good AI that matches things to people, we can make everybody happy. We can make the industry happy, make customers happy. And that's where we are today. We have incredible retention right now.
Your founding team quit?
Yeah.
And then what'd you do?
I hire a new team. My God. That's easy.
You didn't want to close down shop?
Look, I mean, one of the things I learned in my life is that grit is really important to success. If you give up at the first intersection, by the first speed bump, you're never going to make it. All the good entrepreneurs have grit.
So you had co-founders or a founding team.
I had a founding team of fresh out of college undergrads.
Why'd you decide to go fresh out of college?
I at the time, I just had a great connection to places like Princeton and MIT and Harvard on the East Coast. And I found a lot of young kids wanted to be on the West Coast. It was just when the AI stuff took off like crazy. I'd raised some money from some good friends. And I decided, why not? Give it a try. And they were amazing people. They just didn't have the grit to stick it out. And I don't blame them for that. Look, innovation is hard. Like, for the longest time when things are not working, you go to work and you build something really hard that's not working and you throw it away. That's not an easy thing to do.
Did you rehire another batch of younger folks?
Yeah, they're amazing.
Why don't you hire people that, you obviously know people that have been doing this for a long time in industry. You could call anybody.
Look, I can tell you, in my life, all the great stuff from like self-driving cars were done by people who weren't expert. And I gave you the funny episode of me being an expert and how stupid I was. But all the people on the self-driving car team at Google, none of them were automotive engineers. They were all never built a company before. They were all software engineers. And every time we hired an automotive person, we ended up firing them because they were so set in their way of thinking, they couldn't understand that things would be different. I'm sure if you go to, I don't know, Tesla and ask about battery technology, they have a similar experience. The fresh minds sometimes bring so much amazing energy and novelty to it that you really want to have solving a hard problem.
And how does this fit into your framework of like only do things that change the world?
Well, if we can change with agentic AI the way people access the internet and build agentic AI does everything for you don't want to do, we're massively changing the world. I believe what we're building will lead to the next cell phone operating system, which I believe will not be full of lots and lots and lots and lots of apps. And I know I'm not the only one believing this. It'll free our time. I mean, you can see it in many, many places where we waste time. Like, let's take a tax return. I believe you're going to build an app, not me, but someone will, where with a single button click, your entire tax return is being done automatically. So you don't have to do taxes anymore, which is something people really hate doing. There's so many places where we have to do stuff we don't like doing. Shopping is one example, right? So shopping is a lot of work. Young people spend an average of 6 hours a week shopping. It might also be fun work, but it's more fun when you get to see stuff you actually really like. And it's a good starting point. It's not regulated. It's not like the FAA has authority over it.
It's not like self-driving flying cars.
Yeah, flying cars or medical stuff and so on.
Are you building it here?
Yeah. In the Presidio.
Oh, cool. How big is the team now?
It's about 15 people.
All engineers?
Mostly engineers here. We have some very good business people too.
Does that feel like the right team size for a company that continues to search for, or maybe most recently, maybe finding product market fit?
Yeah, so we are at an inflection point where now we're just hiring our first recruiter. To me, 10 people is plenty to search for product market fit, but it's not good enough to build a company. So now
we've plenty though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially right now with these tools.
Yeah, it's amazing. 10 is plenty.
10's plenty.
Yes. And the tools have become amazing. But now, I mean, as we go into a growth phase where we have to hack growth and get influencers on board and go into TikTok and all these places, we want to be more than 10 people.
Does this feel like, are you the CEO?
Yes.
Are you going to remain the CEO?
Of course.
You are?
Yes.
Well, in some cases, you've hired a CEO.
Yeah, with very mixed success. Yeah, sometimes I hired CEOs and then 2 or 3 years later, we let them go. It happens. I'm of course never going to talk negatively about people I've worked with. But yeah, and look, maybe I should leave at some point. But at this point, I'm very convinced that having me do this is not just fun, it's also good for the company.
Are you writing code?
Yeah, on a daily basis. Oh my God. I had a big review session where the entire company reviewed my code this afternoon.
They're doing it this afternoon?
Yeah. Earlier this today.
Let's see how that goes.
Yeah, I mean, I do write code. I love data.
What model are you guys using on the back end?
We use a lot of Clip. We play with Gemini and others. And I'm doing my own neural network, a small one right now that I train myself.
You train it yourself?
Yeah. Greatness, and it's not that hard.
I don't know how you have time for all this.
It's super fun. Look, life is amazing.
You're also in good shape too.
Thank you.
How do you do all this?
I have no time to eat. No, I spend a lot of time with my kids. When you say guilt and kids, I love the time when they're like 2, 3, 4 years old. It's such an amazing time. And they're very labor intense, but I spend every weekend, every waking moment with my kids. I usually drive them to school. I pick them up often. My 4-year-old son is trying to learn how to play chess. So we're playing chess every day.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How much are you working? There's a lot of hard work porn in Silicon Valley right now.
I run 2 companies right now. I also run a social media company. And people are sometimes confused and say, Sebastian, how does a half-time CEO work out for us? And it's fair to ask the question. It's a good question to ask. But the reality is, me full-time is probably not as good as me part-time, because then I'll be more of a pain in the ass for my people. The right balance really is to get a team together that feels extremely empowered, where the direction is clear, where ownership is clear, and where people can do their thing. And I don't always succeed in this. And I mean, I sit there and ask myself on a scale of 1 to 10, how well my company run? And I'd say my shopping company is probably run at 7 right now. It's not a 10. There's stuff that I would like to improve, and it's typically me who can improve it. But when it's a 10 or a 9, it's unbelievably amazing how productive people become and how much they love it. But you have to make an environment where people feel their work is being appreciated and they clearly own what they own, that other people don't take away their ownership. It's really important. And it's meaningful. And there's predictability in their life. You can't just thrash them every day with no ideas. You have to have a plan and a method for having people participate in decision making and really make joint plans. So a lot of stuff I learned about people. It's actually interesting. I'm an engineer at heart, right? And I used to engineer machines. And you wake up in the night and you tell your computer to calculate the square root of 2 and it does it in the middle of the night. Never complains, right? And if it doesn't do the right thing, it's your fault, not the computer's fault. It's very binary. And at some point I realized that's not good enough. I want to program organizations. I want to figure out how to make an organization. And people are so different. Like people, you can't just tell them what to do. It just doesn't work. People have to feel they want to do it. So you have to kind of evoke a passion about people. They have to own it. If you just tell them, they're not going to do it. They do it maybe for a week. And no amount of money can change this. You can give them a really big check, they're still not going to do it. So how do you make an organization where people feel ownership and feel clarity? That's really the engineering that I believe I've mastered in my life. And it's super fun to do.
Do you think people like to be engineered in that way, though?
We all are being engineered every day. Like we talked about money in the beginning. This is not engineering to get people to say you want to get rich. But I do believe people want to have I actually believe people want to have a fulfilled life. And people feel that they can make the world a better place for other people and their time is meaningfully spent. They're generally happy. They're generally happy people. And if you can create this environment where that's the case, then they're generally happy people.
I appreciate you doing this.
Thank you.
It's a real thrill.
I'm sure you're doing the same thing.
What?
Make people feel good about themselves, I can tell. You're good at it.
You're
very good at it.
I think when people know that you care, I think that's more empowering than a lot of things.
Yeah, I agree.
And there's a lot of ways to show that you care.
I agree.
And some of those levers might be financial. Some of those levers might be autonomy. Some of those levers might be title. Some of those levers might be just expressing that you care.
Yes.
And some of those just might be that you're interested in that person.
Yeah. And you have to be honest about it. You can't fake it.
It has to be sincere.
Correct.
It has to be sincere.
Yeah.
And I think in order to do that, it can't feel like work to you. It has to feel like play.
Correct.
And so, I think if you're in environments where you can genuinely, it's kind of second nature for you to do those things, it shows. I think people feel that.
Yeah. And I can tell you have the same skill set and the same experience, which is amazing.
Yeah.
It's rare. People often, especially young people, often think they should just be pushing really hard and work themselves to death and scream at people. And there's certainly instances where screaming has made a positive difference. But to me, screaming, first of all, I don't like screaming, but it's not very sustainable. Like you can do this once or twice, but at some point people are just very upset and then they leave.
I think in today's environment with the younger generation, especially those that are kind of working for you, it just doesn't work. Just doesn't work.
Right.
It's just not how they operate.
And that's great.
It's just not how they operate.
That's great. That makes Silicon Valley so special. Such a beautiful environment. If I was in politics or was in banking, it would be so different. But that's something we have in Silicon Valley is really amazing, that people care. And here's a good thing about Silicon Valley. Like when I go to the East Coast or to Germany, where I'm from, I always get the feeling that the people there have like a zero-sum picture in their mind. Like if I get promoted, it's because you didn't get promoted. If I make money, then I'm stealing it from the poor people, which is a very German attitude. And here in Silicon Valley, we do something amazing and everybody benefits. Everybody gets the benefits of it. Maybe some get more and others get less, but by and large, everybody benefits. So we can create value out of nothing, whatever your value is. And that is such a beautiful world to be in, that you can just do this. You can go into a company and say, let's build a company together and we all benefit. Everybody believes it. And it's true. Like it's historically always been true. And that's just an amazing inflection point in history. If we lived 500 years ago in farming, then I promise you the way the world was the moment you got born was the same the moment you died. You couldn't really create value in any meaningful way. Even the railroad barons had to work really, really hard. Today, a team of 50 people can build WhatsApp and have a worldwide impact that's worth billions of dollars.
Do you think that's why let's just say in Germany, innovation is so lacking relative to somewhere like here?
Germany is sad for me. And I spend a lot of time there with politicians, and I try to really encourage them. Germany does have, I believe, a zero-sum perspective on things. And obviously, they have a very thorny history, which I acknowledge. But the culture is such that if you stick out your neck and try to do something crazy, that people play whack-a-mole with you. They hit you over the head. The place where this works better than anywhere else is Silicon Valley. Like, with my friends, we only talk about ideas, what to build. We never talk about wealth or anything like this. The culture is just not permissive for this yet in Germany. It's getting better. There's now founders, but even the financing in Germany is really, really harsh on people. It's very hard to raise money and not be micromanaged. There's a beautiful book by Sebastian Thrun about the power law in Silicon Valley, where he lays out that as an investor in Silicon Valley, if you lose your money, you lose, say, $1 million. But if you win, you make $1 billion. So there could be 100x, 1,000x when you win compared to what you lose. And that asymmetry suggests you should just invest like crazy, which is what we've done in Silicon Valley. And it's true. When you take these companies where you invest $1 million and you make $100 million back, you can easily invest in 50 other companies and lose all your money and still be in the positive. Great investors like Kleiner Perkins have recognized this long ago and used it as a way to really promote the world and make the world a better place. And it's really important. That DNA does not exist yet in many places of the world. People have not seen that yet. And there's many reasons for it. It's, in the end of the day, it's culture. It's not just one entity. It's not just the investors or politicians or journalists or entrepreneurs. It's the entirety is in a different national equilibrium as we are in Silicon Valley.
As John Doerr always says, you can only lose one time your money.
Correct. John saw this long before. I was about to say I was born, but I'm not that young.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you.
John is amazing. Thanks for having me.
Are you hiring for your new gig? What's it called?
So the company is called Sage AI Labs. The website is called shopongold.com. And yes, we're hiring 100%.
For what?
For anything.
Okay.
But mostly engineering.
In Presidio?
In the Presidio, we're going to move probably to South Market here.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Stay in the Presidio.
No, it's hard to reach for most people.
It's coming from the South Bay.
Yeah. I think here we have the Caltrain and so on. We're going to move at some point.
All right. And when you hear the word grit, I ask every guest, what do you think of?
Grit is the absolute single most important thing to have in life. If people ask me how to raise kids today, what do you going to recommend? I would say curiosity and grit are the things that matter the most. If you are the person, and I've been guilty of this myself, it jumps too fast, you're not going to succeed being a great entrepreneur. Look, every problem can be solved. Every problem that people work on is worth working on. Every mountain can be moved. And sometimes it's easy and sometimes it's harder. You always look at successful companies in awe and say, oh my God, these guys were so lucky and they're so great. And you forget the many, many, many failed companies. But if you give up too early, no matter what it is, then history will punish you.
Thank you. I appreciate you. That's it for now. If you like the episode, please leave us a review or go back into the archives where we've done more than 200 episodes with some fantastic folks. This podcast is a Kleiner Perkins production, and I'm Joubin. Thanks for listening.